Welcome. I'm Kelly Kearney from Starry Constellation Magazine, and with me today to talk about season 4 of the faith based program, The Chosen, is actor Luke Dimyan, and who plays Judas. Fantastic. If you're going to play someone in this story, I mean, that's a very epic role. Thanks for taking time today to talk with me, Luke. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Of course. Thank you. The pleasure's all mine, Kelly.
Absolutely. Have you always wanted to be an actor? Is it something that you were born with a passion, or did something inspire you to start in the business?
Yeah, funny enough, I think I was always a very like loud and a bit of an abrasive kid growing up, and I was very much into various forms of TV programs. A lot of animation was I was very attached to a lot of animated shows and movies growing up. And then when I found out that people can be in shows and movies, I realized that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't realize that it was such a rarity to know to want to do that at such a young age and to have like the kind of passion that I had to like work in the industry. I know a lot of friends who found it like later in high school or they finally tried theater and it was something that they really liked. But no, I guess from a very young age, since I was 5, I've wanted to do this. So it's been a very easy career decision to make.
Yeah, I feel like young people can really funnel their energy into things like theater and acting, and you can kind of, be yourself and explore yourself. And I think those are the people that always, segue into acting and theater. So let's talk about Judas, TV series The Chosen. How did the role come to you?
Well, I auditioned like any other actor. It came by me through my manager's submissions, and uh, I was given the sides. I was a little confused because it was very modern language with an accent. But as I continued, it was I saw I think the trailer for season 1 when I was auditioning for season 2, and I was like, oh no, it works. Oh wow, it works really well. And so I auditioned, and I guess they liked my audition well enough because they brought me back 2 more times, and then finally to audition for Judas, and they gave me the part. I remember actually in the audition, uh, one of the recordings of my first scene didn't go through, and so I there was a part of me I was like, oh, should we do it again? And the director was like, no, we're good. And I remember being so scared. I was like, oh, it was he doesn't need it. He doesn't want it. He's like, that's fine. It's whatever. And he was like, we'll get you in this show somehow. So I thought that he had already made the decision not to cast me and that I was just gonna be like a shepherd boy or something. But I guess it was a positive uh throwaway take. It was
Are
like
you working closely with a dialect coach for the accent?
we do have a dialect coach, but I think this is the first season where I've neglected to reach out for a session because all of my previous sessions I was always afraid that I've fallen off the accent, and then I'll just do a few lines and the dialect coach will be like, "Oh no, we're good." And it'll only take 5 minutes of a check. I was like, "All right, never mind." Then I think the accents are coming pretty easy to me, and they work pretty well. I just have to
Was
remember in the heat of the scene to keep it going.
To keep it going. Is that the only preparation you sort of did for the role? Was kind of getting in that mindset, the accent, or was there any other preparation you might have done?
I did some historical research. I looked up various depictions of Judas Iscariot. I looked at the different interpretations of how his character is seen in biblical text. All the various not the what's the word the conflicting reasons of why his betrayal was committed and the various other unspecified endings that he's been given, because there's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of uh unconfirmed ideas of what happened to him. And so just looking into those have been very interesting and fun. But as for the accent, I just imitated some of my uncles from my family, and apparently that was good enough.
Is good enough. Well, stepping into Judas's shoes, it comes with a lot of expectations. People have what they're used to, and with all the translations for the text, there's like you said, there's different endings, there's different angles to motivations. After all, he's the original villain. sort of, and this story, in humanizing him and doing that research and kind of figuring out his history. Was there something that maybe you learned about him that made you see him in a different light? Maybe something you weren't aware of before, something that was different in the story that you were unaware of?
I think some that's actually a really tough one because I was very aware of Judas before this role. He was historical character and a religious person. Well, not as a person, but a religious figure in religious texts that always uh, I don't know, always intrigued me. The dichotomy of him, the being a follower of Jesus, but then ultimately betraying him, and also the fact that the surface value reasons in the text of why he betrayed and how easily he's forgotten or forlorn upon like most people of faith's per- perception of him. It's He's always intrigued me, and it's funny you say that because in every other depiction that I've seen, there's always been a bit of humanity. It's like hard to actually make this character exist without that bit of humanity, especially considering his ending with his inevitable like betrayal, but followed closely by his tragic suicide. It's hard not to find a sympathetic part in him to play. It's it honestly it comes very naturally. But on top of that, I think something that surprised me was talking to my family who are much more aware of religious history and the specifics that I might not have known is that Judas was actually supposed to be he's considered the eldest of the disciples. He was supposed to be someone who was extremely well educated, wealthy in his own right, and like one of the best of them. That was something I didn't know. That he Which was ironic because I ended up showing up into the cast. I'm like the youngest member, but he was supposed to be like a big brother for the rest of the disciples, which even plays further into, I think, an amazingly complicated ambition of a guy who must know that he gets everything right. So he probably thought that he would get this right too, but he didn't know
Yeah.
how to surrender his high intellect and ambition to allow Jesus to do what he had to do.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of awareness of that character that maybe other people are not aware of. I didn't know he was the oldest. I didn't know that either. Speaking of
Again,
religious,
that might easily be speculation again from a historical or discerning context, but from from my from my family's interpretations, which them being Coptic Orthodox, it seems like they're not really making stuff. They like to keep tradition uh held. So I know there's probably forms that disagree or stuff, but that was something that I learned that was new that I thought was interesting.
that is interesting. And you mentioned your family, and we're going to talk about that because religious persecution, which is a main theme in this story and Jesus' story, is also something that your family has personal experience with. Your
That's very true.
grandfather, he was an Egyptian Coptic priest and he was jailed for his beliefs. That's persecution right there. Does
It
that
was,
family
yeah.
history make you more sensitive to the story of the chosen and your character, maybe even, and what he chose to do? Because you must see some lines that are parallel in these stories.
Um, I don't know if I don't know if I'd see any parallels between my grandfather and Judas, but Orthodoxy and Christianity is a very huge part of my family and our lives, and persecution is also very strong. I think if there's anything that I've taken from that is if there's anything I could compare, yes, it would be like the Jewish persecution, that idea that you're living, you have these strong beliefs that hold your family and your your faith at like a knife's edge of constant like chaos or violence, but you have to just hold steadfast. So it's been very interesting because I have used my family's history, and I'm amazed you knew about my grandfather. He's a very prolific and he's a very strong religious figure in our diocese and our churches. He was an incredible priest, and figurehead for our church, and there were a lot of people who, thanks to his words and his teachings, his strength and his faith, were able to find comfort in such harsh and dangerous times. Uh, but I can find a lot of relatability knowing my family's history and looking at Judas, who is also dealing with persecution and must feel that frustration, that anger, that need for salvation, facing an overwhelming, like, militaric force that persecutes him and his family and his people, his brothers, his sisters. It's very easy to find root in
Mhm.
those emotions.
And certainly sympathies. What since your family is your grandfather, it was a Egyptian Coptic priest. Your family is very involved and very faithful in their religion. Do they have opinions about this series? What has been their reaction?
Everyone in my family who has seen this series has been overjoyed. They've been absolutely ecstatic about it, which I'm very glad with. I remember uh I think it was when season 3 was being released in theaters. That was the first time we had an agreement with Fathom Events to release the episodes in theaters. It was just the first two and the last two. But I remember leaving the theater, and my uncle, who's a very he's like my grandfather. He's very, like, stoic and, like, steady. He doesn't really like to show many emotions, but he came up to me, and he had some tears in his eyes, and he told me he was proud of me, and he gave me a big hug, and I was like, "Oh, I must have done something right.
Mm.
This must be this must be worthwhile to do." And my mom has watched every episode, and she's been very happy with everything. So I'm glad that I'm able to make this show, not just for myself, but especially for my family, because I don't think I'd be here in the place in my career, in any place in my livelihood, without the support and without my family who's raised me to this point. I owe everything to them. So I'm glad that the first major step in my career can be like an homage or a gift to them that they can enjoy
Mhm. Yeah, it
as
must feel great to have that validation and pride from your family, and they must enjoy seeing, the fruits of your labor on the
yeah.
screen.
Yeah. It's pretty
So
nice. It works
it,
out.
I'm sure it is. Is there an episode in season 4? Because we're talking about season 4 here, which was released in the theaters. It hasn't streamed yet, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But it was released in the theaters, so if fans were able to get tickets and see it, they've seen it. If you haven't, hold on, you will soon. Um,
Yes.
so, is there an episode in season 4 that you're most proud of, or that connected with you the most, and that maybe you hope fans connect with the most?
Mm. Oh man. That's a hard one. Well, it's hard for me mostly because whenever I watch my performances, I'm very highly critical. And so it's been very hard to enjoy the work that um I've done, mostly because whenever I look at my own work, I constantly see my mistakes and my faults, and so I'm constantly trying to do better, which I've always just relayed to shut up and trust the people when they say you did a good job, and just accept it. Just accept it and move on and try to do better next time. Uh but but let's see. I guess episode 5. I really liked the full roundness of episode 5, from the beginning of um, the dealing with the Romans, the harshness of that, and then also I think the the homestead, just peace when we enter the house of Lazarus and we are greeted by Mary and Martha of Bethany. It's I really enjoy those creaks, those cracks in Judas's armor, but then also looking at the people as a whole, you also get to see a few cracks in Jesus's armor too, as he knows things are coming close to an end. He knows things have to exist, but he's allowed to be vulnerable with his mother, which those are my favorite scenes. Any scenes with our lovely actress Vanessa, who plays Mother Mary, are some of my favorite. just because Mother Mary is one of my favorite religious and historical figures, period.
So you film this on location. You've been to Texas and Utah, and the show has managed to recreate the Middle East right here in America's backyard.
Yeah,
Uh,
deserts. They're pretty dime a dozen. That's
yeah,
not absolutely true, but yeah.
but there's certainly it's amazing what they've been able to do with Texas and in Utah. What's been the best part about shooting on location, traveling for filming, and does it bring the actors, the core group of actors, closer together? You think? Because when you're
Oh,
away.
absolutely. I feel like it's not to the same harshness, but it's like a boot camp. You go through it and everyone's dealing with the harsh environments together to a point where you look at each other and you know you're in it. You're in it together. You're taking those miles, we're making those walks. Uh and it's long, it's hard, it's arduous. You're all waiting for that sweet release of the word cut before the next setup, and you're like, all right, just 12 more takes, we can do it, 12 more takes. And so I think it really bonds us all together, and then it also makes it easier to perform, because whenever Jesus or one of the disciples says, oh, we're exhausted, it's like, no, 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 we don't need to pretend. We are exhausted in the best way possible. We feel the heat of the desert, and we know what these characters have been through because we're going through it. We don't have to like reach for a semblance of empathy. Like we are right there, and we're in it together. So I think we've formed a camaraderie that cannot be broken by neither heat nor ice.
Need for us. Well, you mentioned earlier fans and forums. They might pick apart facts. So, fans always have opinions about faith-based programs, really any program, but specifically faith-based programs. The fans come to the show with a solid knowledge of where the story is going.
Mm.
So they probably don't hesitate to point out inaccuracies or what they know about certain things. Have they been able to embrace the entertaining parts of this series as well as the accurate moments and kind of, maybe look away from some of the more entertaining parts and just go with the ride? Have they been able to do that?
I think so, because we haven't we're not making a show that is script for script the Bible. There's a
Right.
lot of things that we have left out. There's a lot of things we've done out of order, and I think even Dallas has said this is a TV show first. Primarily, we are making a story, and you can tell that from the stories that we emphasize that are based on character, that are based on emotional arcs, and resonate with so many people. Because Dallas has said this too. Uh, this is not a not a supplement, but it's not a replacement for
Mhm.
scripture.
Yeah,
It
it definitely feels like uh, a retelling, but an entertaining one, and maybe not so bogged down in exact facts, but the overall themes are the same, and you can go along with it. I think, regardless of your knowledge of biblical history and theology. Overall, though, has the fan response been incredible? Because I certainly have seen it online. It's been very eye-opening by how many people were desperate for this kind of project and how excited they are for more.
it's been astounding. The viewership only grows, and our fans have been extremely kind and welcoming, and uh, just loving every new episode that we give them. It's honestly the best situation I think that could have happened. We've just gained such lovely and fantastic fans, and they really kind of make it all worth it, because you can see people genuinely enjoying the work that's being accomplished, and it's just the majority is so loving and caring and happy and thankful that you it really just makes it all worth it.
It really does. And I was thinking about how when you film season two, the show filmed season two at the height of COVID, which is difficult, and then season three, you got a pass to finish during the strike, which again is more challenges to
Actually,
finishing the
no, this
project.
this past season we that
Oh, it's
that
this
was our
season.
interim agreement. Yes, it was this season.
Oh, okay. So is that, would you say that was the biggest challenge for finishing season four?
Not really. The thing about season 4 with the strike is the the Writers Guild strike happened while we were filming, but that didn't really affect us because our scripts were finished. We were an independent company, so we were allowed to keep working. But it was when the SAG after strike happened, we were a week away from finishing. We were so close to being done, and so that really threw like a wrench in our works. And we were like, how are we going to finish? Are we going to just be stuck? We sent in an interim agreement, and luckily by the weekend we only lost really a day.
Mm.
By the weekend we were able to get the interim agreement approved by SAG because we agreed to all of the demand. We were like, yeah, we're we're good. We would just like to finish our show, and then we did. So we just got the cusp of the strike, and we were able to finish off strong.
Yeah, so you mentioned Dallas Jenkins. He's the creator, show writer, showrunner of the show. He recently went to the show's YouTube channel, and he broke some sad news that it's going to be a while before season four streams. For fans who weren't lucky enough to see it in the theater and want to catch it streaming, what can you tease about this season if they haven't seen it? And is there any news on the horizon for streaming in the future?
Sadly, I'm not on the board of directors with The Chosen. I merely act in the show, so I don't have any news or tidbits to tell or to ease the the weight, other than patience is a beautiful virtue and good things to all those who wait. But uh, I think this is a show where it truly ramps up the drama, the heartache, the hardships. This is where the show, I think, is has found its strong dramatic footing, and things that happen in this season are going to change everything that you have seen from the show previous, and I think will surprise you from what you're expecting the show to continue on from here on out. This is the defining season. So I hope you take that, if you haven't seen it yet, with some lineage. No, lever. No. I hope you take that as it is, and I hope you look forward to our season coming to streaming very soon.
I know that fans were really looking forward to the Lazarus story, and I know that this season's going to cover that. So that's certainly a little tidbit that fans that haven't seen it yet can latch on to. You talked about your grandfather a little bit. You also have a charity in honor of him. Talk a little bit about the goal of your charity and why it honors him and his life's work.
Well, you see, my grandfather is he's a very faithful and beautiful man. He sadly um fought a battle with cancer, which eventually in time took him. But he before he went, he set up this charity to raise money and raise funds so that anyone else who is dealing with this very hard, life killing disease that he was very adamant to like communicate to us. It was very painful. It's a very challenging disease to fight, as well as the chemotherapy, where it felt like he was already living with us, but he felt like he was dying on the inside. He wanted to make sure to build up this charity called Merciful Ministries to raise money for anyone else who is battling cancer, who can't afford the treatment, who can't afford the bills, to make sure that they could at least have the affordability to fight with with financial stability, so that they can win and overcome this without the fear of crippling financial debt. That's that was something that he was very adamant about. That's something that he was always concerned about, helping others. He always was considerate of the poor, of people who could not protect themselves, and those were the people that he really stood up for. and he protected, and he's continuing to protect even now.
Is there a place where fans can check that out? And is there opportunity to donate even to his charity?
Yes, yes, you can go on Instagram and Facebook at Merciful Ministries, and uh, honestly, I can even maybe post another link on my story if you're following me. Uh, and the it's always open. It's always open for donations. So anything that you have or willing, even a singular dollar, is uh, life changing to someone. That'll always because even your least can be the most for someone. So if you have time, if you have uh, anything to spare, me and my family would be very gracious for you to honor us, to remember our grandfather as we continue to try and help these people.
It's a worthwhile cause, and I hope that you do get some fans that check out that website and give a dollar, give two, something to help somebody else. What do
That's
you
all we
hope
can
the
ask,
viewers
or to just spread the word.
just spread the word? Well, what do you hope the viewers take away from this show? Once they watch the whole season four, if they haven't already. What's the feeling that you hope they walk away with?
I hope they walk away that knowing that they're not alone, and that faith is not a math problem. It's not a simplistic idea of you do this, you understand a concept, and you are at peace. That it is life. It is a struggle. It's a form of living that you go through, ebb and flow, up and down, and that salvation is a very easy concept to consider and to simplify in one's head. But to live towards it, to live for another, to sacrifice yourself truly for someone you don't know, let alone possibly an enemy, to truly understand that is a a form of inner peace that I think is very beyond conceptualization. And that's what it's like to be a follower of Christ. It's confusing, it's frustrating, it can be downright disappointing sometimes, but it's life. That's a process, and you just go through it. And I hope that when they see this show, that they know, oh, if others can go through it and they can deal with all these hardships and tribulations and frustrations, I can do it too. And maybe I don't have to be so hard on myself or others because it's all common.
Well, it's a very profound thought, actually, and I hope fans, at least some of them, walk away feeling that. That's a good way to look at it, I guess. Are you working on any other projects right now? Obviously, season four is finished. Are We don't know yet about season five, but are you working on other projects the fans can look out for?
Well, I primarily I like to write. I like to film. Hopefully, I can get some of my own projects off the ground.
Ooh,
Uh, so we'll see about that. But also we're prepping up for season five, so hopefully I'm gonna go
excellent.
with that and do some solid work that will, well, I guess not please fans, but I'll try and go do some solid work.
Some solid work. What would you like to say to the fans of the show who are quickly becoming your fan and they will follow you to whatever you do next for sure? What would you like to say to them?
If you're a fan of mine personally, thank you. I think there's a part of me that can't conceptualize that because I've been trying, as I said, I've been trying to work to this and to greater points in my life ever since I was 5. I've been trying to fight and improve to be a better performer every day, and I continue to try to be a better performer and better storyteller as I continue on with my career. So if you're a fan of mine right now and you decide to follow me in my career and you like my performances, I just want to say an eternal thank you because I never thought I'd get to this point, and I it fills me with overwhelming joy to know that there's someone out there who saw something that I did, that I put so much work into, so much so many years into getting to, and you actually enjoyed it. So thank you. Thank you for enjoying my performances, my work, and I hope I continue to perform and I continue to make stories that you can look forward to and that you can enjoy. I appreciate your support, and I'll keep trying to do better.
Well, you're very modest because there's millions and millions of people across the world that are watching, and it's literally a global series. So I guarantee you're picking up fans along the way. I wish you the best, Luke. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I know the
Of
fans are
course.
really excited to see where this goes with streaming. They can't wait for season 5 and updates for that. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.